Welcome to the Blue Room. This is Mikhail, the Idea Shifter, and we are on episode 5. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to chop it up about mental health because it's important to me. But I got to start off every show by saying I bless this mic because I got something to say, and I rock headphones because I'm listening twice as much as I talk, or at least I attempt to. Again, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. You might see me rocking the green on the bottom of the screen, the mental health matters, and notice the MEN is in all caps because it's mental. It's about men because mental health matters for men. And this month, I want to try to educate men about mental health as much as I can. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I've been doing this for 15 to 20 years. I serve adults, I serve teens, I serve youth. I've been in private practice, acute care, schizophrenics, bipolar, you name it. I have dealt with mental health in a myriad of different settings. I have a lot of experience in it, but I've found that some people are good at mental health and they never went to school for it. Some people just got the knack for dealing with human beings and the human soul. So, what I want to do before I bring these guests in, I want to give you my perception of what I think mental health is, and I am a believer. I was pastor and I got out of pastoring because I had kids and I didn't want to be that pastor whose kids did not know who he was. So I opted not to pastor anymore, but I am still involved in church and I am still involved in ministry. So it's from Thessalonians 5. So First Thessalonians 5:23 says, "And the very God of peace sanctify you wholly." And that's WHOLLY. And I pray, God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless until the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I'm going to focus on to sanctify you wholly. And I pray your whole spirit, your soul, and your body. So I'm going to say that again: your spirit, your soul, and your body. So when I talk about mental health, I'm talking about all three. I don't believe you can be mentally healthy if you don't take care of your spirit, your soul, and your body. Now, the body is pretty obvious because I don't want to go into a long explanation of this because the show is not about this. But your body is your body. That's self-explanatory to me in what we're talking about because I want to focus on mental health. It's the spirit and the soul that people are less familiar with, and people may not know the difference between the two. So the spirit is the part of man that is like God. That's the substance of God in a man. And that's made up of three things. It's your conscious, your intuition, and it's called communion. I'm not going to deal much with that, but for information purposes, conscious, intuition, and communion. Okay? But your soul is made up of your mind, your will, and your emotions. So when we're talking about mental health, we're talking about the spirit, soul, and body. Your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And we're most familiar with the emotions part. So this is the seat of the emotions. Your soul, your emotions are the voice of your soul. Your emotions is the place that lets you experience the world on a level that you wouldn't be able to experience had not God given you emotions. So when I say mental health, I'm talking about the synergy between the spirit, the soul, and the body. So there's part of a man that's like God. This part of a man has to function with the soul that God gave to him in his mind, his will, and his emotions. And then that spirit and that soul manifest in that body so that man can have an experience when he is alive. So your emotions in your mind is how you pick up facts, and your emotion is how you interpret those facts and how it makes you feel. So that's sad. It's six primary emotions. It's sadness, excitement, you're loving, you're angry, you're happy, or you're scared. Like primary colors, there are primary colors. Those primary colors make up all the other colors. Your emotions are, it spells the word Selah, like the Bible, Selahs. Selah means to pause and meditate. It means to slow down. So it's sadness, excitement. You're loving, you're angry, you're happy, and you're scared. So when I say mental health, it's the synergy. between the spirit, the soul, and the body. Okay, the spirit, the soul, and the body. Your body is able to, it's the house of that spirit and that soul. But if we're gonna talk about mental health, if you are messed up in one of these areas, you may experience mental health issues. So if there's a part of your brain that doesn't biologically work right, you may experience mental health issues like serious epileptic seizures. If there's a part of your spirit that's really filthy that you haven't paid attention to, you actually can experience mental health issues. And people say, well, how is that? It's because it's a synergy between those parts. So if one part is not working right, then it's possible that it will prevent the whole system from working right. And then when you go to your emotions, if you're a person, you can't label your emotions, you can't experience emotions, you're numb, or remember, it's your mind, your will, and your emotions, or your facts are wrong. If all of your facts are wrong, then it's possible your feelings are wrong and your will might be wrong. So when I talk about mental health, I'm talking about a human being who can live this life and have a synergy, a functioning synergy. I didn't say perfect because I messed up myself. A functioning synergy between their spirit, their soul, and their body. Okay. And it's important that we get that, because sometimes when people say that they're mentally ill, the first thing they want to do, they go to a therapist right away. Well, as a therapist, I would ask you, how are you sleeping? How is your schedule? Um, do you plan your days the right way? What time do you go to bed every night? How are you coping with stress? Like, there are basic things that you can actually do. Okay. So I'm going to bring in some guests because we want to talk about mental health, because for men, mental health matters, y'all. Mental health definitely matters. And I want us all this month to find out about mental health so we can live healthier lives. So I'm not going to say my distinguished guests. I love them both. They'll be in the blue room a whole lot. I got my guy Garrett on here, and I got my guy Antonio Perez. I'll let them introduce themselves, but they are in the blue room. We came here to talk about mental health for men, y'all. Mental health for men. I have some statistics, but I'm going to save those statistics. We're going to do this first segment, and go ahead and introduce yourselves to the people, and then I'm going to ask the question.
All right. I'll start. My name is Garrett Daniels. Been married for 15 years. I've been a resident in Chicago, or in the Chicagoland area, for about 20 years. I'm originally from South Georgia. Definitely glad to be here with the brothers here to be able to talk about this very important subject of mental health amongst men. So I'm just looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. I will be calling you again.
Yes.
I'm Antonio. Would be my second time on with you.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe.
Yeah.
And I believe honestly the topic that we spoke on last time ties into what we're going to speak on today. So
Yeah.
I look forward to the conversation.
Okay. So here we go. Simply put, what is mental health? Before we even bring up men, what is mental health? Go ahead, Gary. What is mental health to you? What is it?
So to me, I definitely think you hit the nail on the head, starting with the spiritual. I think it's the spiritual, it's mental and psychological and emotional well-being, like being in a good place in each one of those areas, and being able to have healthy relationships as it pertains to each one of those areas in your life. So in general, just a general statement, that's what I think it is.
Okay. Yeah. That synergy. So you're referring to that synergy too. It's how somebody is functioning holistically, not just in
Correct.
one area, but holistically. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What you got, Tone?
Yeah, like Mikhail was saying, concerning the mind, body, and soul, how it's God's intention that we be whole in all of these areas. So you're talking about your thought life, which is the mind, how your thoughts impact your feelings, which is the soul, and how your soul impacts your behavior, which is the body. So this is why these have to be in agreement or be in synergy, because your thoughts impact emotions, emotions impact behavior. You know, so many times. Well, before we get to that, that's what I believe it is. I believe it's how our experiences or trauma or pressure, or how all of these things impact all of these areas that in the end influence our behavior.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you said that, because you know you have thoughts, you have emotions and behaviors, and this is like a synergy that a man operates in. And I believe mental health sometimes is like a car. You do not know something is not working right until something happens.
Right.
Like, we go to the doctor
Yeah.
for a checkup physically, but we usually don't go to the doctor for a checkup emotionally. It's usually something has to break down first before we decide whether we're going to go get checked out or not. So you said something about thoughts. When we talk about mental health and thoughts, the first thing I think about thoughts is, of course, you have thoughts, you have feelings, and you have behaviors. But I believe a lot of us may not even be in tune with what we think on an average day, because I realize that it's kind of like driving. Sometimes have you guys ever been driving your car and you kind of space out and you just realize you got home? Like, oh my God, I've been
Yes.
Yep.
driving. And I believe that that's how we do in life sometimes. Sometimes we are not really parsing and measuring the thoughts that are
Yes.
coming to our head.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we don't know
Yes.
what's sitting there. And one thing I've learned about myself, because I got diagnosed with a legitimate anxiety disorder. I've been on medication. I done had psychiatric hospitalizations. I had to pray. I had to fast. I had the chiropractic care. Look, y'all, I fought it in every way I could. I'm good now. But there were times where those thoughts would come to my head, dude. They would just multiply and just give birth to stuff. Like, and I just couldn't get them out of my head. So many things would go through my head. So, what are some things about thoughts you can tell men about mental health? Because we're not coming from a therapist perspective here. We're just coming from, hey, I'm a man, I live this life, and I struggle with thoughts sometimes that I know I need assistance with. As men, what you got for these men out here?
You know, I think like the term self-image comes to mind for me, you know, and a lot of times like your self-image is so important in determining like who you are. Do you have a strong mental health state? Because, you know, others may see you a certain way. This group may see you this way. Your family may see you like this. The people at your job see you like this. But the question is, how do you see yourself? You know, and going back to, you know, thinking about the past experiences that have shaped my life and who I am, thinking about like, man, you know, how I was raised has shaped my self-image. You know, I mentioned in the last podcast, I was raised by my grandparents. So that leads to the question, you know, the relationship that I had with my parents really was a challenge for me growing up and trying to identify, like, who am I? What is my image as a young African-American male growing up, you know, and trying not to be defined by anything negative, but trying to find and navigate my way through. So self-image, I think, is really important for men to realize, like, who are you? Look at yourself in the mirror. Like, who is the person looking back at you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, for example, my mom and dad had me young. They never got married, right? And so I struggled with abandonment and things like that. So those kinds of things shaped my self-image early on in life and even into my adulthood until I could get to a place of like trying to reconcile those things. But I think I'll just pass it over from there. But I think
Don't
self-image is
pass it yet.
huge.
I want to,
Okay.
but I want to ask you something. So
Yeah.
you said that because I was going to ask you anyway, but you went there anyway. So when you said
Yep.
abandonment, so when you said you struggle from abandonment, what did that cause you as a man? Since you had these feelings of abandonment,
So
if you don't mind
so I
sharing, like, what did it
oh no,
cause you, or maybe what did it cost you?
absolutely. I think it definitely caused me a level of fear of loss, fear of I'm not good enough. It just made me feel like, man, what's wrong with me? Right. Again, going back to that self-image of, if my biological parents were not able to take care of me and raise me, what was it about me that caused that to happen? So you start to internalize like a whole lot of different thoughts as a child growing up and even into your adulthood. It affects your ability to trust people, because you think like, as soon as I get close, it's going to be some and they're going to be gone. You know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of like very deeply buried, but it comes out when certain situations arise, and it forces you to think like, oh man, that it's coming from a place of that fear of abandonment. So yeah, that's really one of the things that I have struggled with and have overcome to a degree, but it's still something I wrestle with, even now. But I feel like I've gotten stronger in that area.
And how did things change for you when you figured that out? Because my assumption is you didn't always know that. So
no,
when you
all.
Came to know that, how because if we're going to help these men with mental health, how did it change you to find that out? And how did you find it out? Did you see a therapist?
Well,
was you talking to a friend, or how did you find that out?
So I didn't see a therapist, but friends, like definitely close friends that might have had shared experiences or similar experiences or similar traumas. Like we began to uncover and unravel that many years ago. And I think it's just acknowledging that it did happen, like not trying to live in a state of denial, like, no, that's not it. No, it can't be that. No, it's not this. But to actually look at it and say, this is what it is. This is how it made me feel. And this is how it's affected me then. And this is how it has affected me now. So you got to like deal with it head on. You can't try to avoid it, go around it.
Yeah.
You really just got to face it head on.
Right. So you said, basically, paraphrasing, for men, you found men, or if you had friends in your life that had some similar experiences, and you guys opened up to each other, you discussed it, and you started to unravel, and take off the layers so you can get that insight and basically not move on with your life like it was destroyed, but to proceed with knowledge so that you can live your life and know how that was influencing your thoughts, your actions. I mean, your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. Okay, that's cool. That's real talk. Thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Tone.
Like Mikhail was saying about driving, and you look up in your home, and you look like, man, I don't even remember the last 30 miles. Like you said, that's how the majority of people move. We are, you're either passive or active, so I believe most of us move passively, not knowing who's thinking and who's talking. So I know in my journey, I had to weed out, because we're all like the gentleman said, he was raised by his grandparents. Some of us raised by our parents or whoever raised us. Many times that's who's thinking and talking, and not us.
Yep.
So it requires some serious present, in the moment, active watching and listening to make sure this is really you feeling and talking. Because the majority of my upbringing, my dad worked a lot, so I'm a mama's boy. So, I would respond to life situations like my mother would. I would respond to certain situations and circumstances like my mother would. And one day someone told me, oh, you act like your mother. And even though you hear this a lot, oh yeah, your dad, your mother, it really resonated with me like, man, I don't even feel this way about the situation, but because I'm so used to this type of, upbringing, or how I was trained to be, now it took me years to unravel or undo who I thought I was, and now begin to choose who I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Because most of us are just existing. We're just driving. But like he was talking about, it takes energy to be present. You know, so it's kind of like a computer. It's like a high-tech computer. You're weeding out and undoing who you thought you were and rediscovering who you are. Most people never do this.
Yep.
So it's more of it's an identity change. And we know that similar to becoming a father or becoming a mother, it's like forced identity change. You know, but this is more about choice. You're choosing, you know, so you know, I know for me that helped with my mental health journey because now I'm not responding. I'm responding with more temperance. I'm not causing more trouble. Not saying that who raised me was trouble, but you know, some of those old, you feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some of those old ideals and old methods aren't beneficial. They may have been for a time. You know, so for me, that helped me in my journey in my mental health, in being more present or active in choosing who I wanted to be, and choosing how I wanted to respond, and choosing, you know, versus just being reactive or haste to everything or haste to all the decisions, because we know that's when some of the most worst decisions we've ever made is in the moment. You know, life's about moments. So, you know, I know for me personally, that's how I went on. Not saying this was the end of my journey, because I'm maybe later on we get more into transparency about what really impacted me. Because, you know, growing up, I never really had serious mental problems. You know, but when I got older, you got kids and you got jobs and then you got all of this. That's when things begin to and you become more aware of the world around you, of racism. You become more aware of prejudice. You become more aware of people's motives, and you know, all of this begins to compound. But just going back to my initial start on my mental health or my identity, like my brother was mentioning, I had to discover and choose who I wanted to be.
Yes, and I like that, who's talking and who is driving, because one thing what I realized is I had just been running and running and running and running and driving, and in my life I just ended up somewhere. Like
Right.
I don't even know how I ended up in the place. I went to the church he went to. I couldn't tell you how I ended up there. I couldn't tell you how I ended up doing what I'm doing for a living. I lived most of my life and I just ended up there. There was no intentionality at all, because I didn't know who was talking. I didn't really know how to slow down and operate from a space where I could be intentional. And what happened to me was testimony when my wife got pregnant with my first son. I remember when I found out. This is a true story, y'all. I went to sleep one night, and I don't want to get into the contents of the dream because I remember it vividly, but I literally woke up and lost my mind. And my wife sat there and rubbed my head like I was a dog and read the book of Psalms to me until I calmed down. And for about 2 years, I was mentally ill, bro. Like I still was able to go to work, but I couldn't sleep. I was hearing voices. It was too much energy in my body, and I am a therapist. You understand? I am dealing with people's issues all the time. And then I had to slow down and say, what in the world is going on? And as a man, even though I thought I was strong, even though I thought I was holding it down, even though I was a preacher, even though I was making some decent money, actually, I had started a private practice, I was doing all of this stuff. I had to say, you know what? You need some help. Sometimes the helper needs help. Sometimes the daddy needs help. Sometimes the friend needs help. Sometimes the provider needs help. Sometimes the husband needs help. And I am glad that I was fortunate enough to just say, you know what? Help me. Help me. I looked at my wife's eyes and I said, look, if I get worse than this, put me in the hospital. get me some medication. I was asking for help. So in you guys' situations, what would you tell men right now? Because we'll get back to thoughts and stuff. This is going to be more than one podcast, obviously, because it's a lot of meat here. You know, it's like when men get stuck, we just stay there. Just statistically, especially for black men, we don't even like to go to the doctor. So dude ain't trying to go to a therapist. He can't even go to a doctor. The man got a golf ball size lump in his throat, and he at the crib talking about the cantaloupe just didn't go all the way down. You know what I mean? So come on, y'all. What happens to a man? Why? When we know we get stuck, why aren't we going to get help? It's kind of like the second, why don't we go get help when we know we need
it? I think honestly, the imagery of a man in society is one where you don't need help. You're strong. You're supposed to be strong. Look, that's like a weakness to be able to emotionally expose yourself in that way, or mentally expose yourself to anybody, let alone a professional that doesn't know you. And so I think a lot of times, we as men struggle with that. It's like, do I trust you? Like, I ain't even told my whoever the closest person is about this particular thing. So how can I say I'm gonna trust somebody that's a stranger, and from that perspective? And so I think, a lot of times men just carry these burdens, and we I think naturally compartmentalize things, and we say, well, we'll get to it later. It's like that task on the honey-do list. Like I get to it later. I gotta go to work, or I gotta run the kids here. I gotta do this for the family, or putting everything else before that. And I think it just keeps getting buried deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you have to, like, whenever you do decide, okay, I want to try to resolve this, you got to dig so deep because you didn't address it at the time when it was more closer to the surface, so to speak. So I just think men, the ego, the pride, and those are human things that we deal with as human beings, but especially with men, I feel like it's like our pride won't let us say I need help. And that's why I commend you too, Mikhail, from what you were just saying, like admitting you're a professional in this area. You said I need help. And that's huge. And that's a great example for us as men to be like, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to fix myself. I need help.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you said something, because I'm not going to be long, because I want Tone to come right in. But you talk, and this was good to me. You said men compartmentalize things, and they kind of store it away, and they pack it away, and they keep doing life. They keep being husband. They keep being daddy. They keep being entrepreneur. They keep being chef. They keep functioning, but they never return back to that thing that they packed in that suitcase. So that suitcase is getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And he just keeps doing and doing and doing until things just fall apart. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Tone, you got something? Because that's good right there. That's good.
Yeah, that's it right there. That image of weakness. And the truth is, we're not allowed to be weak, or put it this way, vulnerable. And and this is why creating these spaces are important, because the truth is, most of us aren't allowed to be vulnerable amongst the guys, let alone the lady, our wife. You know what I'm saying?
That's
I remember
real.
1 minute he said, if you ever decide to cry in front of your wife, only one tear. No.
Look, hey, Tonio, and it can't even drop down your face. It's got to stay right on the eyelid.
It can't drop too far. Drop too far, So, that's what it is. It's the pressure of presenting this image of strength and that you're having together. And, man, that can, and on top of it, somebody like me who grew up in the hood, like you having to be tough is even multiplied. You not wanting to look small. Like the slightest bit of weakness that you show, they exploit it. Depending on where you're from. You know, the
Yep.
prison system, whatever it is, this is exterior, facade that we have to maintain. Put it that way, maintaining it. That's
Yeah.
the heavy part. You trying to maintain this false image of toughness and strength, all the while you just like everybody else. You got problems like
Yeah.
everybody else. You cry, you need to cry like everybody else. So that's what it is. It's this, once again, going back to that patriarchy society. Coming up in a patriarch society, men have to, give off this image of, that he fake it till you make it, right?
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's really how men are treated.
Yeah.
Hey, if you ain't got it all together, you better fake it.
That's right. Yep.
You know,
And I think what happens is men are in a precarious predicament, and I'm going to name these stats off to you guys because I think you can appreciate them just where we are, because men, we do have, I like the word facade. So first of all, we compartmentalize things and we act like they're not there. Like we just won't deal with it. We act like it's not there, and we put it away in that suitcase, like Garrett said. And then we just leave it there. And what happens to that suitcase? It starts getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Then I'm going to bring in what Tone said. And then since we have this facade of toughness, we had this facade like we got it all together. We going to act like we can carry that suitcase. Now, we got all types of herniated discs. Our shoulders dislocated because it's heavy. And we tired and we sweating and we hurting. Our hearts hurting, our legs, our arms hurting. Our brain is frozen like we drinking a big gulp without stopping, and got brain freeze, your life messing up, and you moving on like everything is cool. And you know what? Eventually, watch this. I said this in my little intro. When you look at the green at the bottom of this, that's kryptonite. That's the color of the mental health. That's the color of the mental health ribbon. It's the color of kryptonite. And men have to realize we are men, but we are not supermen. There is some kryptonite out here in life that's going to break you down. And if you don't address it, it's going to take you down. Do you feel me? Like it'll break you down. And if you don't address it, it'll take you down. And yes, we can fake it, but eventually, when Superman stay around kryptonite too long, let me tell you something about Superman. Superman didn't only get weak, he lost all of his powers. If he stayed around kryptonite so much, he left all of his powers. He left all of his power, so he could do absolutely nothing because he did not get the help that he need. And that's how we are. We don't get the help we need at times. What you got to say about that, Gary?
As you were speaking, it made me think about the fact too, like sometimes when we compartmentalize, we store it away, it gets heavier and heavier. When it does come out, because it hasn't been addressed ever, the one thing that stimulates that reaction could be something very like inconsequential. It could be just somebody could cut you off in traffic. And that might be that one thing that's like, you know what, that's it. And you see it all the time on the news. So, and I'm not trying to like take the conversation away from what we're talking about. I'm saying like
keep
this,
it moving, keep
like
it moving.
when you're not dealing with it, like the least little thing can set you off, but it can have the greatest ramifications for your life. And it's because you didn't handle it in the right way, or you didn't have a healthy outlet. And that's another thing. I'm glad that came to me, the healthy outlet. Like a lot of times men don't have a healthy outlet to even blow off some steam, you know what I'm saying? Or like a support group or any kind of way to, if you can't get the professional help, just something that can help you kind of get to the next place in this journey. And if you don't have any outlets and you keep burying it deeper and deeper, it's going to be an explosion at some point. And it's probably going to be an explosion on somebody you love, care about, that has absolutely nothing to do with the trauma or the issue that you're the mental health issues. And it's like, dang, I didn't mean to do that, but that's how it came out,
Look,
so
or Gary, or you're gonna mess around and it's gonna be the person who was responsible.
Or it's gonna be, or it might be the person that
you just gonna flat out lose it. Yeah.
and you just lose it, right? No, and then you lack that self control is not there, and
Facts.
you can't. It's like the Incredible Hulk, basically. If you don't
Yeah.
deal with it.
Yeah. And let me name these statistics to you guys right quick, because these statistics right here are um these statistics are key, because some of the stuff we're talking about is men compartmentalizing. We act like it doesn't exist, right? And then Tone said we got this facade, and because we're in a patriarchy society, he is right. What other choice does a man have? Like we're not supposed to ask questions. We're supposed to have the answers. You know,
Right.
we're not supposed to say things are heavy. We're just supposed to carry it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to say, is everybody else okay? Because that's the bar that people set for us. So we go along in life trying to be something that we already are, but something that we actually don't have to be, all at the same time. So watch this. 1 in 10 men experience depression. 1 in 10 men. So it's like if 10 of us sit in the room, the stats are probably higher.
Yeah,
But
for
one in 10 men, we're sitting there. And I think the statistic is talking about debilitating depression, not that you just feel bad, right?
Yeah, got you.
Right? But watch this, y'all. But half of the men who got it don't even get treatment for it. So it's not that we experience it, we don't get treatment. Watch this. 50% of women experience a traumatic event in their life, but 60% of men experience it. Meaning that just on average, more men are traumatized than women. Now, most people would tell you this statistic is different, but most men experience more traumatic events than women. Of course, some of that is because of war. You know, some of that is because of other things, just men being who they are. Watch that. But this one is the one right here. 75% of all suicides committed are men. Now that's a stat for you there, meaning that if you got 100 people that commit suicide, only 25 of them was women. And to me, that statistic right there blew my mind. I'm in this field, but I didn't look at that statistic, but it popped off the page to me that if 10 of us are in the barbershop, 7 of y'all gonna commit suicide. Like that's what those stats are saying, meaning that because that compartmentalizing, that facade, I'm glad you guys said that, because it just illustrates everything. Us getting up and walking away trying to be strong, 75% of us are killing ourselves, right? Now, 30%, 36% of males get treatment. So no matter what mental illness a man has, only 36% of us get treatment. That's ridiculous. That means we're really not getting treatment. If I had $1 in my hand and I gave you 36 cents, you're going to tell me I'm cheating you because I'm walking away with most of the money. We are not going to get help. Like you said, Garrett, we are walking away. And like Tony said, when we walk away, we acting like we okay. We're acting like we're strong. We acting like we got it all together. Okay? I don't need to read the other stats. What you got for me, Tony? Because to me, this is an endemic for men. I wouldn't call it a pandemic, but it's definitely an endemic. It's something that we are choosing to suffer from. What you got for us men? Even a man like me, what you got?
Yeah, and you know, when I listen to stats like this, I like to add on a higher percentage if we isolate the black community, because this is including all men.
Yeah,
But
well, most of the suicides are white men, except for that one.
But the trauma,
Yeah,
except for that
but the
one,
rest
right?
of them, yeah, right.
Right.
But
I
the
got you.
rest of them, as far as what we experience in the world,
Yes, sir.
and as far as mental health, we could add on to that, because what black men experience, not only do we have to, and this is the thing about, you know, this new movement of women now, you know, and how a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the media, they want to turn the man against the woman against the man against the woman, and they talk about how the years of oppression for women, yes, absolutely, because of this patriarchal society. But this is what women have to understand, particularly black women. Black men wasn't able to enjoy these. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. They in line with you.
So you attacking the wrong man.
Right.
You attacking the wrong man. It's okay to
Yeah.
acknowledge the years of oppression for whoever, whatever race, whatever creed, whatever background, whatever gender, but we have to make sure that we're not lumping all in as the oppressor, because black men during those times were right alongside you being oppressed.
Yep.
So I think this is an ignorant movement in terms of attacking black men in these certain areas on top of what we already deal with. Just think about this. I can't go to my job and be myself because because most men work with the majority of white people.
Yeah.
I can't go to my work environments and be myself. I can move in and out of my crew or the guys and be myself. Now I can't even go home and be myself. So all of this stuff is compounding on these men, and again, crack. You crack. Now going back to accountability, right? That Mikhail was talking about, it's also our choice.
I just wrote that down.
Yeah, there are times in our lives where we all are impacted by somebody else's choice, but concerning this topic here, man, this platform is to give us tools to get help. So we have to divorce all of those ideals and put it in. Here's the problem. These ideals that we live by are Western ideals. They're Western. They don't even belong to us. So it shouldn't be that difficult to put them down. I don't have to live up to these ideals that, number one, don't even belong to me. Now I can go get help. Because I'm not like you said, that thought life, those thoughts, these are ideals. These are that facade, right? This image that's in the thought that dwell in that thought life of how I have to move, how I have to be, how I have to do, what I must do, what I have to do, what I shouldn't do. That we have to put down or divorce some of these ideals so we can make ourselves vulnerable to go pursue help.
Yep. What you got, Garrett?
Well, I read something, and I wish I would have wrote it down where I read it, but there's also an aspect of, from a genetic standpoint, that I never really even thought about, that certain things can be genetically transferred to generations, to your kids, to your grandkids, based on past traumas. So if somebody in our family had a certain trauma or had a certain experience, that genetically can get passed down, and you could have nothing, like you've done nothing, as far as the decision making that you've had in your life. Epigenetics is what it's called, but you've done nothing. You've done nothing to warrant certain aspects of mental issues, but it's been passed down from generation to generation, and not only genetically, but it's kind of reinforced because of the things you're being taught and the interactions that you're having with certain people in your family. Yeah. So it's almost like this is normal, like this is just something our family deals with, and it's kind of downplayed to the fact, like, well, it's not a mental health issue. This is just something we deal with as a family, and I feel like that's a very big hurdle to try to get over, because you're fighting against your family, quote unquote, it being a family trait, versus no, this is not normal, because normal people aren't dealing with these types of traumas or these types of mental health issues, that I'm dealing with. So but I never really knew or thought about the genetic aspect of it, where you just don't have no control over your genes. You just get what you get, but obviously you have to kind of try to reconcile that and deal with that, the best way you can, once you realize this is a generational issue. Let me try to figure out how I can break this.
That's good.
Yeah, and two things, because I'm in the field. So it's two things we have to understand. Now, some people do have the predisposition of being an addict, or you have predispositions. You have what you call the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is where you store memories, where you store experiences, and it's just there, and it can definitely have an influence. But I do want to bring up choice, because perhaps choice is what we rob ourselves of every day. So, for instance, when I started figuring out this stuff about my mental health, just because stuff started going wrong, I started making different choices.
Right.
So I started making different choices. So in my family, suicide runs in my family. Depression runs in my family. Drug addiction runs in my family. Alcoholism runs in my family. And when I realize it runs in my family, now I have to make intentional choices to reverse what experiences happen in my family. Now, people who are in church will call it a generational curse, and there is some wisdom in that. It is biblical to say generational curse. However, I do understand that choice plays a part into knowing things and information. So remember, we said mind, will, and emotions make up the soul. What tends to happen is, when you said, when something happens to a man and he sees it, he puts it in a suitcase and he walks away from it. Meaning he has a fact that he didn't know before that he chose to ignore. Right? For whatever reason, he has this facade. He walks away from this fact. So if you know diabetes runs in your family, watch how you eat. If you know alcoholism runs in your family, watch what you drink. So I want to be clear, just as a man. I realized when I started getting insight about my mental health, I was able to make intentional choices to be mentally healthy. Meaning that when you have information or when you have revelation, now you can make a different choice. Because what happens to people is, there are some people on this earth that when they hear a fact, the fact is bigger than their power. I'm gonna say that again. Their facts are bigger than their power, and that's the reason why we need spirit, soul, and body. So a lot of us as men, sometimes, even like when we deal with the racism stuff, a fact. Sometimes I got some people trying to give me a contract right now. I'm not listening to the fact of who's giving it to me. I know that I have the power to get it. So there's some choice that's involved. When we start dealing with this mental health stuff, you said self-image. Garrett, you said self-image. And what you just talked about in the epigenetics is when people have an image of what their family is, it's hard for them to sculpt an identity outside of it. I think Tone said the voice that's talking to you is not actually your voice. So you as a man have to learn what your voice is. Because as long as somebody else's voice is stronger than the one that you actually don't even have yet, you can't make a choice. And that's how we get stuck in the mental health stuff, is that some of us don't have enough information. That's your mind. Enough facts, right? And then some of us, our self-image is so bad that now our emotions are wrecked about those facts, okay? And then our body responds to those too. So now your body starts to gravitate towards your low self-image instead of your good self-image. It starts to gravitate towards doom instead of possibility. You know what I'm saying? It starts to go to nightmares instead of dreams. And we do have choices in those matters. Go ahead, chop it, Tone. I see you bubbling.
No. Hey, look, check it out. I'm gonna go to the Bible real quick, because it's something that I've never heard taught concerning Jacob and about him being deceiver, supplanter, and we end up just accusing him of that. But check this out. Who helped him deceive his father? His mother.
Mom.
But check this out. It ain't in there. Who ended up deceiving him later? His mother's brother. It was in the family. But guess what? going back to what Mikhail said, regardless of what's in the family, you gotta repent for it. No, you're not repenting for what your mama did or what Laban did. You repent, you still gotta repent and change your ways. You know, so
Yep.
even though like this song was given, this was given to me. You
That's
know,
right.
they gave this to me. You know,
Yep.
so you know that's powerful the way he's talking about genetics and guess what? Even though everything ain't fair, but guess what?
No.
It still come down to our power
That's right.
to
Yes.
Come on.
choose. You know, so we have to be empowered. We have to be
That's right.
empowered to choose a different lane. We got to be empowered to choose a different thought process. You got to, and it's scary. It's scary. That's the thing, though. It's scary. But man, sometimes you got to do it afraid, and then you don't even know what's inside of you until you met with that battle.
I feel
You
like
know,
fighting
so,
right now.
man, you know what I'm saying?
That's real. That's
You don't
real.
know. We don't
Real.
know what's inside of us. We don't know what we're capable of until we encounter these situations.
That's
This
right.
not the time to give up, or it ain't the time to woe is me. This when those moments come, it's really the time to respond. Just to see what's
That's
really
right.
inside you. You
Yeah.
know?
What you got, Garrett?
I think just kind of piggybacking off of what Antonio said, I think so. Looking at different dynamics when you're a younger person, you know, whether it's adolescent, young adult,
Yeah.
a lot of times those choices, though, so the thing that is the thorn in your side, so to speak, you'll make choices to eliminate, alleviate, or resolve that thorn by doing unhealthy things, like whether it be drugs, you know, drinking, women, you know, or for women, men, or whatever. You know, it's like you try to find these substitutes as opposed to dealing with the issue, you know, head on. And if you don't have the right support system of older men, and I'm speaking specifically for men, like if you don't have older men to go to and talk to about these issues, you become like kind of a prisoner to your own issues, and you don't have the power to resolve it. So I think
Right.
as we talk, you know, I'm in my mid 40s. I need to be able to start becoming and to be that for the younger guys, like whether it's my kids or anybody else, you know what I'm saying? For the young, because they need that outlet. They need to know, man, there's somebody older than me that has been through some things that might be able to shed some light on what I'm dealing with. And I'm actually, you know, I got a personal situation I'm dealing with a family member that I'm kind of helping with that right now, a young cousin of mine. So just knowing that you have somebody that you can talk to, that you can be open and honest with, because honestly, growing up, I had my peers, but I really didn't have anybody older than me that I felt like, man, I'm dealing with this. I'm gonna go talk to him and just lay it all out there.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel comfortable. But I think a part of that mental health journey is trying to find older, wiser, maybe not older, but somebody that's wiser, that has the experience that you can confide in and be open and honest and transparent with, to start that journey. Because it may end with a professional, but you got to start somewhere, you know. And so I think having the ability to make that choice, kind of tying it back into the choice thing, is huge at a younger age.
Yes, and I hear you guys saying choice and power seems to be, and one thing, and so my testimony was sexual abuse by men and women. That's my testimony from about 6 to 11 years old. So my whole concept of all that is twisted, but
yeah,
I had to make the choice that I was not going to let that define me. Like it was a conscious choice that, you know what, this is not who I am. And I had to come to grips. Tone said something, and it something rose up in me. If God put it there, you don't have to keep it, and you can find somewhere else to put it. But there is gas in there to fuel you. There is something about being disempowered that becomes power. And I believe that when there's a synergy between the spirit, the soul, and the body, you're able to tap into this power. And we were talking about Jacob. And the beautiful thing about Jacob, and I gotta say this because this right here is cold. It changed my life when I discovered this. So God himself, right? After Jacob, wrestled with God, he called himself basically Israel. He said he's Israel,
Right.
if he ever walked it with a limp. But God himself still today calls himself the what? The God of what? Abraham. The God of what? Isaac. And the God of who?
Jacob.
But he never got rid of Jacob's name. He don't say God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He says the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because it's power in Jacob. As men, we have a hard time loving the parts of ourselves that other people don't like. Like there's a part of me that I hate that God still used to do something, that God still uses to propel things. But as a man, if we don't like who we are, then we will never walk in the power that we have. Because unfortunately, when you go stand before God, when I talk to Tone, when I talk to you, Garrett, I bring everything about me that I love and I hate at the same time. I can't compartmentalize myself. I am this whole man all the time. And when I realized that I needed help, I simply said that I was going to find strength in my weakness. And that's why we need a community of men. That's why I run the weekends that I run. That's why I have this part. I only have the Blue Room podcast because I got a passion for men. Because I know now it's 75% of suicides is us. Only 36% of us are going to go ask for help. That Garrett is such a good father. Tone is such a good father, such a good husband, but us being good at what we doing is the reason why we don't get help. It's counterintuitive. If I was really bad at it, I would go get help, but I'm able to have these issues and still pull it off. That is what makes it hard for us. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Garrett.
Hey, I wanted to ask you something, Mikhail, because in talking about your testimony, like what did it feel like when you started making those choices? Like, what did that feel like? Like, literally, what were you going through? What did you have to deal with? Was it fearful? Was it like, you know what, ain't no such thing as fear, I'm just going to plow through it and put my head down and do it? Like, what was that process like for you making those choices?
So honestly, what made me realize, because Trina is my second wife, when I got a divorce from that first wife, I realized I was not a man. Like let me tell y'all something. I just flat out realized I was not a man. I just realized I had never been taught how to be a man. I didn't know what being a man was. I didn't know I had emotions. I was always a man who was in touch with my emotions, but I was drowning in them. It's a difference between being emotional and drowning in your emotions. I would say that first divorce made me sit back and go, bro, you got to do something. Now, I didn't even address everything right then and there. It didn't all come up all at one time, but that's the first time I can honestly say, and I'll end up writing a poem called The Dark Room. I'm not a man. And when I realized that I had been emasculated in a relationship, I realized that I was emasculated a long time ago already.
Yeah, that's good.
So I didn't attribute my emasculation to her. I attributed my emasculation to back then in those spaces where those violations happened. And I never dealt with it. And it got all the way up here. And I was operating with a woman like I was operating in those spaces.
Right.
And I think that I just had to come to the reality. I had God. I was saved, studying. I mean, I was college degrees, everything. But one thing I never did is I never saw how my trauma was actually playing out in my life. I just knew it. So it's not enough as a man to know your trauma. You have to know how it shows up in your life in order to make intentional decisions. Because knowing, shoot, when I was a shorty, I don't know if it was out when you was there, Garrett. G.I. Joe said knowing was only half the battle.
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
Knowing is half the battle.
If you only know half, it really doesn't do you any good. So knowing is not enough. So personally, that's what started making me figure out, because I was like, I felt emasculated before, but it's so intense now because it happened then. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
No,
I thought you had something.
no, that's good because to be honest with you, when I got married and I'm still with the same wife, but she left me after the first couple of years. That's when I told myself I wasn't a man. I
Mm,
realized it. And it wasn't like something that she told me. It was just I looked at everything. It was like I don't even
mhm.
know what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what I'm doing, and I had to be honest with myself. You know, I had to be real with myself and start a journey of becoming a man, or figuring out what that looks like for me. You know, so those events, you know, sometimes these are these moments where men fall or give up or stop. You know, these moments can be catalysts to for the next 30 to 40 years of your life.
Man, say
You
that.
know, you feel what I'm
For
saying? So
real.
that's what
For real.
it's not where you stop. It's actually the place where you start building.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel that though. I feel that, you know, and I got a dip though, fellas. But
Yeah.
Okay.
hey,
Thank you.
hey, Mikal, I'm always available, bro. Love y'all.
I got you. Love you.
Hey, love you, bro. Nice to meet you, brother.
Yes, sir.
So Garrett,
Yeah.
we've been talking about this topic, and we didn't cover any of the points, but I'm okay with that because it's
Yeah.
just it's just us breaking bread. So what we want to do is let's talk about how there's a stigma, right? So we got the stigma of men don't go get help. Why we don't go get help? What are some solutions to that? Because we know there's a stigma, and I'll go first. I think it's a stigma just
Yeah.
because there's a facade that, unfortunately, even though we do live in this modern society, hey man, we're still men.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be powerful. We're supposed to be stable. We're supposed to be taking care of our village. We're supposed to be providers. We're supposed to have the answers. And I think
Yes.
because, I'm not saying that the world, see, I'm not a guy who says that the society puts this role on me. I believe it is my role. Skip society.
Yes.
Because I think society is saying men should be weak right now. I do not feel that way. I believe it's my role, but I think men believing that that's their role may be the reason why there's a stigma to going to get help, because you kind of got to step off the podium, and we think we got to put our medal down to get help. Well, really, you keep your medal on, you just step off the podium and get help. What are some solutions to men that maybe if they watch this podcast, which I hope they do, what's some solutions for men that we can give to them that may assist them in their journey of getting rid of this stigma and going to get the help they need so they can walk in their power and create the life they want?
Well, I mean, acknowledgement. I think the first thing you got to do is just acknowledge that you need help. I think that's one of the first biggest hurdles that we in general have to come to and get over is like, I actually have an issue or a problem, and I don't have the capacity or the tools to fix this problem. So I need help. So it's unlike any other thing. If you're not a mechanic and you don't know how to fix your car, but your
That's
car
right.
keeps stopping on you every time you get on the highway, it starts sputtering. You got to pull over, but you don't know what it is. Eventually, you're gonna have to call somebody that know how to fix your car and tell you
Yep.
what the problem is, so that they can help you and fix it. Either fix it for you or give you the tools you need to fix it. So I think acknowledging it and then being humble enough to actually go get the help. It again, I think I mentioned it earlier, the whole pride thing. Like, pride is, man, I think I think J. Cole got a song where he say pride is the devil or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's true because like we're built, like you said, to be Superman. We're built up to be invincible in our own minds. But the truth of the matter is we have weaknesses and we have issues, and we got to acknowledge that first and foremost, and then say, you know what, I'm gonna find somebody, even if it's somebody in my close knit circle. Like, if it's one person that you may feel comfortable with sharing certain things with, man, start there.
Hmm.
Like, start somewhere, and it's
Yep.
communication. It's opening up. It's talking. Like, just have a conversation. It don't have to be super deep, but you have to kind of lay the groundwork to start the conversation, and then from there, every step you take, you'll open up more, more things will be revealed
Yeah.
to you. Then you may get to a point where I'm more comfortable opening up in a group environment where it's more than just one person. And
Yeah.
then from there, you may feel like, okay, now I can get to the point where I can seek a professional who may have a more targeted approach to what I'm dealing with and more targeted solutions. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's good advice. And one thing I would tell men, as a professional and as a person who had to get help, pay attention.
Hmm.
There are warning signs,
Yeah.
and pay attention to how you feel. Even if you can't label it, you know when you don't feel right. It's like you just kind of know when something doesn't feel right. You know when you're just not in a good space. You just kind of know you've been feeling bad a long time. You kind of know your stem is short and your fuse is short and you ready to blow up on everybody. You know that your wife been telling you about your temper. You know that your mood has been fluctuating. Men, please pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to your interactions with people. When people tell you
Yeah.
you are angry all the time, believe them. When people
Yeah.
tell
That's
you
real.
you are sad all the time, believe them. When people point out that you used to be on time all the time and now you always late, or you used to always be happy, now you're always sad, or you used to eat all the time, now you don't eat anymore, or you used to enjoy doing certain things, you don't do them anymore. These are signs that something may be wrong. Instead of compartmentalizing it, like Garrett said, and walking away and then having this facade like nothing is wrong, like Tone said, I need you to go to that suitcase, open it up, take
Yes.
out that item, unfold it, get a brother, get some washing detergent, put it in a laundromat, wash it, and as y'all wash it, get it out, look at it, and see what else you got to do to it. Because I am not even advocating that people get professionals first. I'm advocating that you get someone.
That's real.
Because
You
when you only do a professional, and I'm a professional, when you only do a professional, you still go home to nothing. And you only
mm,
see that professional one time, two times a week, but it's a whole life you got to live. I would say pay attention and get some men around you can do life with so that you not only get professional help, but you get support from people who actually love you. That therapist, you're paying, and yes, they do good work. We're taught to have unconditional positive regard, but you need unconditional positive regard from someone who loves you already. That would be one tip that I would give to men.
that's
You
real.
got one? You got one more, Garrett?
I would just say, and this may be a little left field with it, but I think like getting outside, getting into nature. Like for me, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
me and my family, especially during the pandemic when everybody was kind of like, you can't go here, can't go there. We would go to these nature preserves in Indiana, in Illinois, different cities, different areas, and we would just walk together. And we would just go. I mean, these trails are beautiful. Some of them had rivers, some of them didn't, but you're in nature and it's peaceful and it's just a different environment. It's away from the hustle and bustle of life, whether it be working in the city or wherever you work or doing your daily tasks at home or whatever. But it was like, man, this is like so peaceful to the mind. It's just a
That's love.
different environment. Even exercise, and I know that's something I need to do more of myself, but exercising, doing things like that, I think has a direct impact on your mental health and on your self-image.
Yes, it does.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you look better, or if you feel like you look better, then you're gonna feel better. You know,
Yep.
So I feel like those are some things that and it's practical and it's cheap. You know, it's like maybe you don't have the money to spend on a therapist, or maybe you don't have, you know, the kind of health insurance plan that allows you to do that. But you can basically in very inexpensive ways find some solutions that you can do every day or every weekend. just to break up the monotony of your life and your day.
Right. And I like what you're saying. Self-care.
Yes.
Self-care. Find something that you can do that gives you passion, that gives you peace. I think one thing I would like to say, men, we are human beings, not humans doing. I'm going to say that again. We're human beings, not just humans doing. As men, we get caught up in do. We don't know how to just be. We don't just know how to be content. We don't know how just to be at peace. We don't know how just to be with our wives or our children. We don't just know how to be at the movies or be at dinner. There's always something we think we have to do. And in order for you to get a handle on your mental health, you have to learn how to be, not do. Okay? You have to learn how to center yourself. You have to know that we're humans being, not humans doing. And that way you will make space to be and not to do. And I'm talking to myself when I say that. And I think as men, we do have to learn how to slow things down because things are moving so fast that you don't have time to think about how you feel. You don't have time to think about how you feel because people don't give us enough credit. I don't think about how I feel because I'm thinking about how my wife feels. I'm not thinking about how I feel because I'm thinking about feeding my children. I don't think about how I feel because I'm thinking about other things I have to do. So remember, man, make space for you. Because if you don't take care of yourself, like Garrett said, all things are already lost. So I think this was a very good conversation. Of course, we got to have more conversations about this.
Yeah.
I thank you for getting on. And man, I hope if you're watching, you can, and women, you can get something from this too, because you will learn how us messed up men are actually thinking. The reason why you can be sick for 90 years and never go to the doctor is just counterintuitive. But it's not that we are Superman. We actually believe we are. You know what I'm saying? Hey, y'all, I bless the mic because I got something to say. I rock these headphones because I listen twice as much as I talk. This is the Blue Room Podcast. I had Garrett on. He's going to be on here a lot more times. If you want content like this, if you are a man and you are ready to move your life or move your life forward, just subscribe to Move Your Life on YouTube. Move Your Life on YouTube. I'm telling y'all, we chopping it up. I am enhancing men by challenging their thinking, cultivating their spiritual and emotional health, and challenging them in the areas that matter to help them grow mental health, money, faith, and family. And guess what, y'all? Subscribe to Move Your Life. And I definitely will see all of you guys next time on the Blue Room.